Welcome to this week's episode of The Federal's Worldly Wise, a weekly video show that takes a deeper look at trending international issues. US President Donald Trump has threatened punitive tariffs on 8 European countries after they opposed his push to buy out Greenland, which is a semi autonomous territory which is a part of Denmark. The move has shocked European leaders and renewed questions about the fate of ties between the US and the European Union. To unpack the implications of this standoff, I'm joined by the Federal's consulting editor K.S. Dakshinamurthy, who closely tracks international developments. Thank you for joining, sir. So, how serious is Trump's move to acquire Greenland? Why is he insisting on it at the risk of breaking ties with the US's closest allies?
Um, it's a what Trump has managed to do is really upend something which has been historic in the sense the EU-US ties have been historic, and there was never a situation, nobody could have contemplated that a situation like this would arise, where a US president would want to do something which goes against the wishes of the European Union, and also something as brazen as buying out a territory that belongs to a sovereign nation, Denmark, which is also a close ally of the US. So it's really bundled with ironies and contradictions, and this is really sent the world trying to figure out what's happening, because nobody has yet come up with a cogent response. Now, why is Trump doing this? Now, according to Trump, if we go by Trump's logic, it is that Greenland is positioned, at a very strategic place in the Arctic, and today the Arctic Circle, around the Arctic Circle, with the melting of ice, what has happened is many areas that were earlier inaccessible today has become very accessible. So it is possible, and then in the Arctic Circle you have Russia also there, you have China there, plus you have all the other European nations. All of them are active there, and Trump wants to ensure that he gets a foothold in Greenland because it is very strategically positioned. If the US takes over Greenland, then according to Trump, they have an upper hand and will ensure that no other nation, what he means is basically China and Russia, will not try to give a surprise. So that is one reason. The other reason is that Greenland itself is supposedly, it has massive resources, oil, maybe rare earth, we don't know. So it's got a massive natural resources, which is huge, because Greenland itself is a very large area. So Trump is looking at it, but he's looking at it also in a sense, without really taking the larger context. And that is what is so surprising, because he doesn't seem to care about anything other than wanting it. It's like, a typical a Trump move, total unpredictability, and really the real reasons are shrouded in mystery, if there are any real reasons in the first place.
Okay. So, what is the implication on US's ties with its NATO allies?
See, as of the moment, you have these 8 nations and all the major European nations, including its closest ally, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, have all completely opposed it. In fact, these countries have sent troops to Greenland to do a kind of a military exercise, just to show Denmark that they are aligned with Denmark rather than with the US. And so what it basically means is that this relationship that has been there so firmly since the Second World War is now finally looking to, it'll break. I mean, obviously, if Trump does something, see, he's trying to buy out. Let's look at the possibilities. Trump is trying to buy it out, which means to pay money and buy it. And the US in the past, other presidents have bought, similarly, they bought territories like Florida and, many other states. So Trump is trying to replicate probably something like what was done in the past. But as far as Europe is concerned, Europe is not willing, and today's world is a very different world from what was done in the past. So typically, so what will happen is, uh, if Europe doesn't oblige, so Trump has said that he's going to impose tariffs, some huge tariffs. Okay, that is number one, and these huge tariffs are, in some ways a little funny, because Europe and US have the closest of relationships. There are at least more than 3,000 odd products which the US imports from Europe, and they all form more than 50% of the total imports of the US. So it's really big. So to impose tariffs is not a small thing. Imposing tariffs on EU, that is one thing. So, if by chance Trump goes out all out and even militarily tries to, or by force, or tries to take over Greenland, then it would really place the situation in an unprecedented manner, because they're all friends eventually. They're all part of NATO. First of all, NATO will rupture. NATO will break into two. Then you may even have a, if there is a short conflict or anything which is quite unimaginable, then the entire world order, the whole thing will change. But Trump is also known to, bluster his way through. So, he may push for it, as much as possible. And maybe, it's difficult to believe that he will allow US Europe relationship to rupture. So, he may kind of go till the point. It is what is known as brinkmanship. So, he will just go till the edge and then, back off, is what I think. But if not, I mean, it's the consequences are something that it's really too big to even contemplate, too vast.
You mentioned that it would affect the world order. So, how does Trump's move affect the larger world order?
See, what would typically happen is, if there is a rupture between Europe and the US, number one, it makes the world a more insecure place, firstly. Secondly, what Trump would have managed to achieve is a certain kind of a stability that has existed in Europe since the Second World War, because there has been a large, the very formation of the EU was an indication that today, Europe, which was fighting for centuries, got together and decided that there would be a union, and that has been working. And it has also happened with the blessings of the US and the support of the US, because the US has been a huge part of support for the EU. And also, you have countries like, say, Russia. Russia, though it is also part of, it's fundamentally part of Europe, and it has been, the general agreement is that it has been kept off trying to encroach on Europe, because of this relationship that exists as part of NATO between the US and EU. So that will change dramatically. And then what Trump is also doing is cozying up to China, and he's also cozying up to Russia, both of whom are the rivals of the US and also rivals of Europe, which fundamentally are US allies. And you see what has happened as far as the Ukraine war is concerned, Ukraine-Russia war is concerned, right? So what will typically happen is that if Trump goes ahead with his threats and does something which right now nobody can contemplate, like maybe a military action or a forcible takeover by other means, arm twisting or blackmailing or whatever you call it. So if something like that happens, Europe will become unstable. It will also give a kind of a signal to other countries that they can go ahead and do what they want. So, the world runs through what is known as the rules-based order. So, what Trump would be doing is breaking that, and it also makes Canada extremely insecure, because Trump has already said, when he spoke to Justin Trudeau, the former Prime Minister of Canada, that he considers Canada to be the 51st state of the US. So indicating that he's interested in Canada as well, and then not only Canada, even Mexico. So what Trump is trying to do is, quite incomprehensible, because he's trying to. It's a, some people call this a neo-imperialist kind of an agenda of the US, and Trump is, maneuvering it, in ways that nobody can actually foresee.
Okay. Now, for the last question, what will be the repercussions on India?
See, as far as India is concerned, strangely, though it this entire episode, this entire issue brings about a lot of uncertainty as far as the world is concerned. As far as India is concerned, by it can rebound in a positive manner. For instance, you have the EU now looking for other options. See what Trump's threat to the EU as far as Greenland is concerned. What it has done is the countries which were very close to the US and which depended on US, both for exports and for imports and trade, largely, are now looking to diversify their trade, and India would be a beneficiary because the EU, for instance, is scheduled to sign a very deep or a comprehensive treaty with India just now, on January 27th. And then you have Canada, which is also looking at China, and then you have Britain, which also recently signed a kind of a free trade agreement with India. So what it basically does for India is that, as far as trade is concerned, it brings in new partners, it brings in new cooperation, and then when everybody is looking for new markets, new countries to trade in, India becomes a candidate. So what would typically happen is that in a sense it will benefit India, but as far as politically, it would also make it that much more insecure because, again, like I told you, since Trump is challenging the rules-based order in the world, tomorrow China can do what it can take over Taiwan. It can become even more powerful than what it is today, and being India's traditional rival, China. So to that extent, politically, it may not be that great, but economically, it will benefit India.
Thank you for your insights, sir.